trade impact. What stands out to you? Why don't we each give a minute or so? Devontae Adams trade impact, because then we got to get to Amari Cooper.
I'll
Go
go
for it.
real quick on this. I think the two biggest beneficiaries of this trade, fantasy-wise, are Aaron Rodgers, obviously, whose passing numbers are going to go up, touchdowns are going to go up, and then Breece Hall. Because
Breece
as
Hall,
the
okay.
passing game
Yes.
opens and targets are shared, the running game is going to open up because you can't pressure, right? You can't kind of put that pressure around the box as much because you only had one threat at wide receiver in Garrett Wilson. Now there's two elite guys on the perimeter. So those are the two biggest beneficiaries from where I'm sitting.
Yeah, yeah. I think obviously, like you said, Aaron Rodgers is the biggest beneficiary. In turn, I am the biggest beneficiary of all this. Also, I would
That's
like
what the
to
listeners
say,
want to know.
I would like to say, I'm thinking of Garrett Wilson.
Yes.
Um, I would like to say he would be a beneficiary of it. However,
100%.
if you have Lazard and then you have Devontae, will Rodgers revert back to old habits of people he's used to because he's still working up chemistry with Garrett Wilson? I think Garrett Wilson will be forced to become a third receiver. However, um, however, Lazard would be more of a beneficiary than Garrett Wilson. I think. Just looking at it, I'm thinking that number one, you have to pay attention to you do have to pay attention to Devontae. Okay, you have to pay attention to him, and also you cannot ignore the talent that Wilson has. So now that leaves Rodgers to go to Lazard. Lazard used to be the number two for Rodgers, in Green Bay, but now he's number three, and then it's like you're gonna put your third best corner on my guy. I'm going to my guy 100% of the time. So I think it's going to be one of the biggest beneficiary of it.
Sure.
What about
Yeah,
you, Shed?
yeah. Definitely, I expect to see, like you guys talked about, Rogers' number go up and have an impact there. Rogers likes his receivers to be at a certain spot, to be over here. He's very particular with that. That's why even his last year in Green Bay, he didn't get on the same page with his young wide receivers until later on. I feel like Garrett Wilson, though, is past that point. Garrett Wilson has a few years under him, so I still feel like Garrett Wilson will be a beneficiary of that. But I don't think Devontae Adams will be getting your consistent 12 to 15 targets. We've seen a slight decrease in Vegas, so I think moving forward, Adams will be good, but he won't be elite. Lazard will get about four to six catches a game, and Garrett Wilson and Rodgers are clicking, so he'll get about 5 to 7 receptions a game.
Yeah. So I
That's
think
fair.
the reality is you got to see it like this. Alan Lazard takes about half of his snaps out of the slot. So Garrett Wilson and Devontae Adams can play out wide. They're different enough, but I think what's interesting is I think this helps Garrett Wilson because the first 4 weeks, the last 2 weeks for Garrett Wilson, weeks 5 and 6 were very different than weeks 1 through 4. In week 5, Garrett Wilson had 23 targets. Hello? Garrett Wilson, I believe he's the most targeted receiver in the NFL. He's been the most targeted receiver in the NFL because of weeks 5 and 6. I don't think all of a sudden now that Aaron Rodgers has Devontae Adams, he doesn't trust Garrett Wilson. The reality is you got to remember this. The first 4 weeks, these guys had never played really together. I mean, did Aaron Rodgers really play in the preseason? I don't think I can't recall him really playing in the preseason. So those first 4 weeks were the preseason. And then now they finally start to get some chemistry and timing. I mean, Garrett Wilson caught 8 of 10 passes this past week on Monday Night Football. But I think, honestly, the biggest benefactor of this whole trade is Brock Bowers. Brock Bowers, Las Vegas Raiders, I think he is the biggest benefactor of this trade because the last 2 weeks that Devontae Adams has not been in the picture, Brock Bowers has, what has he done here? Week 5, 12 targets, 8 catches, 97 yards. Week 6, 10 targets, 9 catches, 71 yards. Brock Bowers is going to feast. I think he's probably one of the greatest benefactors of this whole trade. But if I were to rate it, I think Brock Bowers, Brees Hall, Rodgers. I think he'll be fine. I don't know if he's gonna like skyrocket up, but I think he'll be
Jacoby
fine.
Myers will get more targets as well. I mean, he'll be a viable fantasy play a lot of weeks because it's
With
only
Trey
him and
Tucker?
Bowers. No,
What about Trey
Jacoby
Tucker?
Myers.
Yeah, I'm saying, what about Trey Tucker now? Do you guys
Trey
think
Tucker will get more targets, but they also use him as like a gadget player. So they'll run like jet sweeps with him or put him in the backfield. So I think as far as passing volume, that's going to go to Myers and Bowers more than anything.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it'll be exciting. Devontae Adams playing with the Jets makes them a better team, right? I think everybody on the Jets' stock goes up. I don't see how anyone's stock could go down, to be honest. But let's move on. Let's talk about Amari Cooper. The Cleveland Browns are a dumpster fire. Like, the Cleveland Browns are not a bad football team. They are god awful.
It's
Deshaun
bad.
Watson is clearly the worst starting quarterback in the league. And has Amari Cooper been – he's talented. Has he been motivated?
Well, that's his
But
problem.
they shipped Amari Cooper out to Buffalo, who Buffalo just beat the Jets at Monday Night Football. But it's clear that they could use some wide receiver help, and they make the move to bring in Amari Cooper. What are you guys' thoughts? Trade impact or fantasy impact on Amari Cooper leaving Cleveland, going to the Buffalo Bills?
I'll go. The thing about Amari Cooper is that his issue in Dallas is he would be up and down from like a motivational standpoint, right? There was issues where home games he do well, away games he wouldn't do well. So when he brought up motivation, that was kind of interesting. But he won't get the numbers Diggs got, right? He'll be a good safety blanket for Josh Allen. He's a quiet guy, so he won't ruffle any feathers, like Diggs did. But he will become more fantasy relevant than he was in Cleveland. Now he won't get Diggs' number. He's going to play a role as Diggs did at the end of 2023 when every few games Diggs went off, but Josh Allen could depend on him whenever he was there. Because at the end of the day, Buffalo has found a winning formula, right? And that's limit Josh Allen's pass attempts and run the ball. They're going to continue to do that. They're going to have Amari Cooper as a safety net, and there will be a slight uptake. There'll be an uptake for him, but I don't think anything crazy.
All right, here's what I want to say about Amari Cooper playing with Josh Allen now. I'm going to give you some numbers here. In 4 particular games last year, a specific 4-game stretch for Amari Cooper, he had 25 catches, 485 yards, and 3 touchdowns in a 4-game stretch.
Season?
That was playing with Joe Flacco last year on the
Yeah,
Cleveland Browns.
He was balling.
Josh Allen has the same arm strength, talent, obviously much better and younger than Joe Flacco. The last time Amari Cooper had that type of quarterback, he went off for those 4 games. I don't think he will replicate those numbers because that was one of the better stretches of his whole career. But I think he immediately becomes the wide receiver 1, the favorite target. I think everyone else on Buffalo takes it. They're kind of knocked down a peg. Kincaid, Coleman, Shakir. I think they'll stay committed to the running game. And then Cleveland is almost like you can start Nick Chubb if he's healthy, and that's it. I don't start anyone else there unless you're desperate. You could put Judy in your flex if you have to because he'll get targets, but they're not going to be quality targets. But I think Amari playing with Josh Allen could be a great rest of season play.
Okay, I'll go. So here's the right answer, guys. The biggest benefactor of this move, this trade, is and once I say it, if I'm in a league with you, you cannot go get this guy because I will go get him. Okay, we've already made that deal. Keon Coleman. So right now, Keon Coleman plays 89% to 100% of his snaps out wide as an X. That's not his position at all. He's not a fast guy. He's a big guy. He's not fast. Corners can keep up with him. They can, that's not his position. his position that he is most effective at is a slot receiver. So Amari Cooper immediately goes out wide as the X, and now you could put Keon in his natural position up in the middle of the slot, going against linebackers, going against nickels, and he's gonna eat them up. He's bigger than them, faster than them. So that's where his natural position is, and that's where he's effective. He was effective in college. So I feel like he's gonna be is gonna start becoming fantasy relevant because his first 3 games in the league, he was 100% out wide. His last 3 games was 89%, 96%, and 89% out wide. That is not his position, and that's why he has not been effective thus far. And so I'm looking at Keon Coleman. So if you're in a league outside of my league, go get him. Um, Also stash him because he's gonna become very relevant as the weeks goes by, and also it's gonna open up the run game for the running backs. If you have James Cook, if you have Ray Davis, those are also big benefactors. If you don't have Ray Davis, go pick him up right away.
I hope you're right.
It's interesting. Here's my thought. I don't have honestly much thought on this, and this is why. I think obviously when we talked about Devontae Adams leaving Vegas, I hyped up Brock Bowers. Will, you hyped up Jacoby Myers. I don't think anybody on Cleveland is playable, to be honest with you. I mean, they stink. That's just the problem. They're unmotivated. They're not going anywhere. They stink. I don't think this helps Jerry Jeudy with the absence of Amari Cooper. But then as far as Coop going to Buffalo, I've liked Cooper since he was at Alabama. I followed him when he went to the Oakland. I've always liked Amari Cooper, but the reality is this is very different than the Devontae Adams trade because Devontae Adams goes to the Jets to play with a quarterback that he already has chemistry with under an offensive coordinator he previously played with. Whereas Amari Cooper, though the arm talent may be similar to Joe Flacco, he's never played with Josh Allen before. So it's a different system, different quarterback, different timing. And historical data, I was looking at some historical data to try to see have there really been many midseason trades for receivers that have that have been to their benefit from a statistical standpoint mid-season, and had a hard time finding that. You could find it more for running backs than you can for wide receivers because running back, it's easier to translate, hence why you'll see running backs come and perform very well their rookie year, whereas receivers, it does take a little bit of time. Running back is a lot more instinctual, where receiver, it's a lot more reliant on chemistry and timing and understanding the playbook. And so as far as Cooper goes, I think his talent is there, but I don't want to overhype him and say buy, trade for him, simply because I can't recall and find historical data that would support that we'll see a huge spike in his usage and in his production. As far as Josh Allen goes, Josh Allen's already an elite quarterback. I mean, the guy is already a top 5 quarterback, so it's like he's fine with or without Amari Cooper. We just saw 2 weeks ago Josh Allen throw for 4 touchdowns in a game, throwing to who? Khalil Shakir, Keon Coleman, and Dawson Knox. Like, he's fine, I think overall this makes Buffalo better, but fantasy implications.
Well, I would say, Matt, as far as historical data, this is the 3rd time Amari Cooper has been traded. And
mid-season?
This is the 2nd time mid-season. He was traded from the Raiders to the Cowboys in the middle of the season.
Yep, that's
and
true.
Immediately went up as a fantasy player, going from Derek Carr to Dak Prescott. Became a great, he was like wide receiver. He was top 12, top 15 the rest of the way. So going from Deshaun Watson to Josh Allen is probably an even more radical jump than Derek Carr to Dak. So it's obviously going to take him a week or two to get acclimated, different playbook, different verbiage and all that. But I actually think he could be a great play because we've seen it before in the middle of the season.
Well, and the fact that he's been traded 3 times, I forgot about that. Like, he's a good player that's been traded. Like, so apparently
The
he's not good
motivation
enough.
thing that you talked about, Shed.
Yeah,
That's part of it.
it has to be because he produces, but he doesn't produce it consistently, right? They have to get it out of him.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. It's exciting. I mean, I think the movement is very exciting for the league in general. And I mean, the reality is, let's just be honest, Devontae Adams was not playable as of recently. He was legit holding out, essentially.
Yeah.
And Amari Cooper was not playable. But now you have these guys who are playable. I think it opens up doors for more fantasy players to get back into your roster, which is what we want as fantasy footballers. But